What's up, everybody? It's the Outlaw John Rocha here with my reaction and spoiler review, quick spoiler review for the most recent episode of She-Hulk. Saw it this morning, ribbit and rip it. This one here dealing with LeapFrog coming into She-Hulk's life and all the commotion that it causes and her connection to Daredevil, who finally shows up here in this episode. As I said, this is a spoiler review for a few minutes. We're going to have a more extensive spoiler review with the Geek Buddies later on in a couple days for sure, but I just wanted to throw my thoughts out on the channel here for you all to hear what I was thinking about this one. Okay, overall, I would say I enjoyed the episode for certain moments, and then other moments it just didn't 100% work for me. The LeapFrog stuff is so ridiculous. It does stick with the overall tone of the show, and there's all the stuff going on with Luke Jacobson. Certainly this idea of faulty super suit and the lawsuit, all of that as a premise works. I like that idea. Yeah, that makes sense. If you're going to create somebody who makes super suits, naturally there's going to be somebody who can afford them, who maybe has a malfunction on a suit. That happens with all big companies. You know, whatever they create, there's always somebody who might have an issue with it, or somewhere along the way in the manufacturing there's a problem, and so when the person uses it, it causes them damage or hurt, and there's a lawsuit, and that happens. But my concern here was the whole twist of this was that he used jet fuel, and you're going to tell me a very accomplished, intelligent lawyer like Jen Walters isn't going to ask those questions, isn't going to send the suit out to be independently verified, independently looked at. Look, I get it. It's a fun sitcom-y type of thing. I totally get it, but it doesn't mean you have to make the characters dumb, and she's not dumb. She's pretty damn smart and intelligent, and to be in the position that she's in, to be revered as a lawyer, to be considered female lawyer of the year, it really is weird that you have a sequence where she gets fooled in court, or she gets kind of caught out in court simply to kind of show that Matt Murdock is a pretty great lawyer and he's crafty or whatever. I feel like there was just a more intelligent way that you could have handled that whole sequence and that whole part of the show itself. Tatiana Maslany always doing great work, no complaints at all. But of course, the big reveal is finally getting Daredevil and seeing the yellow, red, and red costume, which he of course calls ketchup and mustard. That was cool. I liked seeing Daredevil. Certainly Charlie Cox hasn't lost a step playing this character, really knows this character, embodies this character well. So his interactions there in the courtroom as Matt Murdock, those are totally great. Those are you buy those with her and with him and Jen, with him and She-Hulk. All of that is fantastic. His introduction, of course, he's representing Luke Jacobson. That totally makes so much sense because we had seen, his outfit hanging in Luke Jacobson's shop. We'd seen his helmet there in the box. So why not call one of the best lawyers around to come and represent you in this situation? So the introduction of him completely works. The back and forth with him and Jen in terms of their interactions, I liked with, her even breaking the fourth wall, saying, "Who's this asshole?" I dug that. That's a nice way to kind of undercut it because Daredevil can take it. He's such a revered character, and Charlie Cox's interpretation is so revered that he can take a little bit of like having someone call him a name or whatever that is the protagonist of a show. It won't lose anything. And then later on, when we have them get together, though, I don't need to see my Daredevil with quips. And I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud, or I'm not trying to be an ass, but my ass remains unwhooped. I just really didn't like that. Let's stay away from the jokey joke stuff unless he's Matt Murdock. That kind of stuff works because the way Charlie delivers those lines, like for example, when he's in the bar with Jen, there's a smoothness to him that he can be playful, he can be shy and awkward. But when he's Daredevil, we kind of come to expect something different from what we've seen in the Daredevil series and the Daredevil show. And certainly what people were afraid of is that they would make him much too funny or quippy. And it would kind of undercut the badassery that is Charlie Cox's Daredevil. They gave him a great hallway fight scene, which we all love to see in the Netflix series. So it was great to see him fighting in the hallway again. Jen coming through the top of the building there to handle the other hench thugs or thug henches, whatever she's called. I think hench thugs was cool. I mean, you get it. She's not experienced with this as much as Daredevil, but we know Jen, when she's She-Hulk, takes chances that Jen Walters might not take. So I like that it fits the character storyline that they've developed, that She-Hulk has a certain character and Jen Walters has another character. And I appreciated that. That was cool to see for sure. And then when they take out everybody and LeapFrog essentially breaks his legs and what have you, I thought that was that worked so well. And that ending at the gala, I thought was really good. I mean, look, this is a female-oriented show, so you're going to get some of these responses to some of the issues and circumstances that women have endured in our society for quite some time. I mean, I was a little weird that there's a female lawyer of the year. It made me think of the Schmodown and some of the fans who've been like, we need to have female competitor of the year. We need to have a female team of the year. And, Clark Wolf pushing back and saying, no, we're all in the bowl together. So we are the league, and she was absolutely right when she said that. So I was kind of thrown off by that with the idea of having the female lawyer of the year, and of course they played into it with Mallory getting a moment to say you work twice as hard for less pay and less recognition, and you get asked stupid questions like, what's it feel like to be a female lawyer of the year, which is, of course, kind of plays on what we've seen in some of these red carpet pushbacks from actresses going, how come you don't ask men what they're wearing? How come you don't go use the camera to go up and down on the men? Those kinds of, which are legitimate criticisms, which, we're all being made aware of. And I think we should all pay attention to for sure. So having that moment was cool. And then boom, seeing as Jen is thanking her parents, seeing that screen pop up there with the intelligentsia stuff and seeing her private life and her privacy violated in such a horrible way certainly shows you that this is a female point of view in what they've experienced. Certainly we've seen over the last few years how many celebrities have had their phones hacked, their videos put online, their private pictures put up there, their private messages put up there, and what have you. So we've seen violations of people's privacies, and we've seen the reaction, and seeing She-Hulk react in this very strong way, seeing Jen Walters react in an almost as close to the Hulk that we first saw in the Avengers and whatever, the Bruce Banner Hulk that was much more animalistic, much more angry, much less reasoning. We saw that come out. We know that gear in there is in Jen now in such a strong way. And that comes from deep in the pit of a woman to have her privacy violated in such a horrific way when the society is constantly watching women and judging women and putting them through a microscope. You can understand where that anger comes from. And as much as, I think Mallory tries to stop her from doing something and she destroys the screens and we see the red light. And then afterwards, later, she runs out and grabs the guy, and who I think is Todd. I mean, that feels to me like it's Todd who got rejected there when he tried to hit on her, tried to brag about his Wakandan spear that he bought. So seeing that, it just feels like he might be the guy that is behind all this. We thought about the leader, but it doesn't feel like the leader to use such unsavory tactics. And I know some of you might be saying, do you know the leader in the comics and all the shit he did? Yeah, but there's something about this that doesn't seem to fit what I would necessarily think would be the leader. The acting throughout the whole episode was cool. I really enjoyed Charlie Cox coming in. I think they had really nice chemistry. The walk of shame, I didn't like that beat. That's not a Daredevil beat. Some of you might think I'm being, again, a stick in the mud or too much of a prude, but it just doesn't feel like Daredevil. I don't think that 100% worked for me overall. But I will say this. I enjoyed the conversations about the Sokovia Accords. I enjoyed the conversations about privacy versus the cost of revealing that privacy in a courtroom setting, with Matt and Jen going back and forth about whether they should reveal things. And I thought Jen's response to everything was like, hey, they're in the public eye. They don't necessarily have to be afforded every level of privacy. There are certain things that, because they're in the public eye, we should have access to, which is ironic because, of course, later on with that ending, her privacy is violated. The same thing with Matt. Matt kind of pushes back and says, well, just because Jen Walters decides to live her life out in the open and reveal her identity does not mean that other superheroes must do the same. And so he's essentially saying she's trying to force her point of view or perspective on all superheroes and coerce them into revealing their identities or what have you, which of course is very similar to Civil War and all of that. But I find it interesting that later in the bar, Matt is kind of soft pedaling, coercing her into becoming a hero, that she can, do both, be a lawyer by day, be a hero by night, all of that. And because that's what he does. And so maybe in a soft way, he doesn't realize he is coercing her to kind of follow his path. And I do love that Daredevil calls her out about the property damage stuff. I think that's fair, because as I was watching this thing, I was like, wait, she's just picking up some dude's random car and throwing it at Daredevil. How is she going to pay for that person's car? She's smashing her hands and causing all kinds of damage in a parking lot and shattering windows. And she says she's going to leave a note, but I don't think she has that in her bank account to cover the cost of all those cars and what have you. Certainly living in a big city, she's probably making a lot of money, but she's also paying out a lot of money in terms of bills and rent, what have you. So I like that Daredevil kind of called her out on that as well. So overall, I'd say it was a good episode for the Daredevil stuff for the most part. As I said, I didn't like the walk of shame. I didn't like the my ass remains unwhooped moment, but overall, I like the way he was introduced into this universe. I like the chemistry he has with Tatiana Maslany, Charlie Cox does, their chemistry as characters, and of course, them indulging in that chemistry. I had no problem with, no issue with at all. Just some of the other stuff I felt just kind of undercut Jen a little bit, and I want to see a little bit more coming forward. And that gala I thought was really sweet. And then having that turn into something pretty brutal will be very interesting to see going into the finale next week. All right, what'd you think of the episode? Did you like it? Where did you sit on it? Let me know in the comments section below. Am I being too hard on it? Am I being too much of a prude in terms of how I want my Daredevil? I'm trying not to be. That's not my Daredevil, but I can't resist that there's a piece of me that likes the Netflix Daredevil, and I want him to stay this more brooding, angrier guy, in my opinion, who's a more hard ass, a little more of a harder edge to him. I want him to have a little bit more of that here in this world. But, you know, am I being that? Let me know down there in the comment section below. Hit a like on this video, share it on your social media. And as always, put that hashtag, the Outlaw Nation, on there so people come and hang out and watch my reviews and my trailer reactions and my videos that we do here on the channel for sure. And please remember to subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button, so you see when we're dropping all the content we do here on the Outlaw Nation channel. Head on over to Twitch, follow me there, the Outlaw Nation, all one word, and head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/John Rocha. Come and hang out with me and have some fun talking about movies. We hang out twice a week on the Patreon, and there's other benefits as well for being a part of the Patreon. And don't forget, the Geek Buddies will be doing our spoiler review on it. All right, y'all, take care of yourselves. Be well, and I'll talk to you next time with another brand new review here on the Outlaw Nation.